Oh, snaps!
The world is finally waking up to the crap that's baked into and sprayed on kibble dog food. No longer can commercial pet food manufacturers fool us with pretty pictures and false promises. This is the raw dog food truth. The view and opinions expressed on this podcast are not intended to replace medical advice. Before starting any raw diet, do research, ask lots of questions, and consult your vet. Well, hello, raw feeders. I'm DeDe Murcer Moffett, CEO of Raw Dog Food and Company, where your pet's health is our business and where friends don't let friends feed kibble. And today, I have a plethora of friends here. Dr. Judy Jasek is with us, as well as Adam and Josh Bigelsen. Now, you guys have been listening to us talk about these guys for the last couple of weeks, and they're finally here with us to answer questions, and we're so excited. Now, if you want to know more about the Bigelsens, all you have to do is get over to BigelsenAcademy.com. It's Bigelsen Academy.com. Dr. Jasek and I are in Academy 1 and 2. I would say that Dr. Jasek's probably a better student. Adam, she goes down the list. She does it in chronological order. I bounce around. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a part from season 1. I'm going to.
I was the front row type A,
Cool.
Yeah. So it's great information. But here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why health is simple and people are complicated. And that's what Adam says all the time. Health is simple and people are complicated. Now, Adam, we hear this all the time from our pet parents. But let me just tell you a little bit about these guys. And I think I've told you about this before. Here's 2 books that you got to get. Holographic Blood and also Doctors Are More Harmful Than Germs. Wow. That is an incredible book right there. And actually, your next series or academy, or what do we call that?
Course.
Thank you. Is going to be based on this book. Now, these books were written by your father, Dr. Harvey Bigelsen. And Dr. Harvey is a revolutionary, or was, he passed away in 2019, but a revolutionary thinker who helped redefine the legitimacy of homeopathic philosophy. And he invested 40 years delving into the true nature, the relationship between mind and body. And then you guys, Dr. Emoto, you remember Dr. Emoto, you guys, he is the Japanese scientist, yes, who talked about seeing the water change depending on the energy or the words that you put out. So this is what Dr. Emoto said about Dr. Harvey Bigelsen's work. He said, over the course of his 25 years of research, Dr. Bigelsen has learned how to interpret images created by the blood in order to understand a person's total health. He has found that blood, like water, is a messenger of a person's emotion and consciousness. And this is exciting and spectacular research. And my hope is that it will be shared with the world. Well, we're going to do our part to get it shared with the world right here today.
Awesome.
All right. So here's a question for you guys. Why is health simple? Why do you say that? Because so many people would say, there's so many opinions, there's so many doctrines, there's so many people spouting different things. How is health simple?
Good question. This is one of the conclusions our father came to after decades of working with people. And one of his heroes was Sherlock Holmes. So Dad considered himself a medical detective. He's looking for patterns, things like that. So what he noticed was that yes, health is simple. If we do things like align the body, remove the blocks, the physical blocks, energetic blocks, emotional blocks. This is the Rudolf Steiner 4 bodies, the physical body, energetic, emotional, and spiritual. If we have balance there, then we're pretty much impervious to disease. And this is what he did. He looked at the blood, he saw blocks, removed the blocks, people got better. But the thing is, you got 10 different people with cancer for 10 different reasons. We are very complicated people. And one of his conclusions was chronic disease is 1,000% triggered emotionally. So what does this do to us, right? Our emotional experience and how much this affects our health. And it's nice to be here talking about animals because I was having this conversation with my girlfriend the other day. Animals in nature, there's no purpose for them to get sick. The reason animals in nature get sick when they do is usually because they're going to die. Domestic animals are a different experience. All right. So for us, yes, health is simple. Align the body, remove the blocks, the adhesions, the scars, and things like that. The circulation flows, the respiration flows, the digestion flows. If there's pressure on organs because things are out of alignment, those organs have to do with different emotions. So the reality is your liver problem could be a result of your structure being out of alignment, putting pressure on the liver. It could be a result of your anger issues affecting your liver. It could be a result of a tooth affecting energy to the liver. So your liver issue can be physical, energetic, or emotional. But these things were easily seen in the blood. And the patterns, as far as Josh and I are concerned, we don't look at our blood very often. We've seen the patterns enough. We know how the body works. And that's what Dad did.
In this book and in a lot of your presentations, you show the pictures that come out in the blood, and it's wild. It's wild. Now, I do want to clarify something right up front, Adam and Josh. There's a difference in what some people are doing with live blood analysis and what you guys have been doing for 40 years. Can you clarify that for our listeners?
Sure. Live blood analysis, there's something confusing about that because live blood analysis is a brand. It's also known as nutritional microscopy. So when we tell people we do not do live blood analysis, but we do analyze the blood while it's alive, that confuses people. Whoever came up with the idea, it's brilliant marketing. So we do not do live blood analysis. We do not do nutritional microscopy. We do something very different, very similar images, but a very different interpretation and philosophy. And the reality is, at this point, we are the only ones in the world who do what we do, regardless of what anyone has told you. I do that. There is people that we have trained. We do not refer anyone to any of those people. We don't know where they are or talk to them. So what we do is very different interpretation and philosophy.
Well,
Yeah, the key is the philosophy and the consistency, and we get into it a little bit here and there, but it was obvious that my father had very different trainings than what's being trained out there. And now it's like it's a game of telephone, where you got people taking a 2-day workshop to learn how to use the microscope, then they're teaching the workshop on their own. When for us, it's all about recognizing patterns. I've been doing it for 20, almost 25 years now. My dad did it for longer than that. And you're recognizing patterns. It's not something you learn in 2 days. It's not something you learn in 2 months. It's not even something you learn in 2 years. You have to replicate the patterns over and over and over again. And that's kind of what we're doing. So
I think too, what gets so lost in, or it's gotten lost in the more conventional medicine is, I think like you were referring to before, Adam, the individuality of it. It's like it's conventional medicine. It's like almost algorithmic, where they can't, if they can't name something, they can't treat it. And once it's named, well, then there's this treatment for it, and it's all this one size fits all. And then people end up frustrated because treatments aren't going well. It's like, because every animal, every pet is an individual. You have to look at the patterns in that particular individual, and you can't treat them like you were saying, Adam, like 10 others with the same quote unquote diagnosis, because what's going to help them is going to be different. I think that's just a really foreign concept to a lot of people.
medicine has totally taken the individual out of the equation. And Dad learned that in medical school. He was a surgeon, so he went through medical school. He went through that training, and he said they taught him nothing about health in those 4 years of medical school. It was just like military style regurgitation. They just, by the end, you were so overwhelmed with remembering everything that you just read in the book that you couldn't actually use your brain anymore. So they were taught the normal body the first year and an abnormal body the second year. They never taught them how a normal body becomes an abnormal body. And he said, if you don't know what caused the problem, how are you going to fix it? You can't throw guesses out there and think that's going to help fix the actual case. So yeah, totally taking the individual out of the equation. And to a lesser extent, but it's becoming more alarming and more of a pattern in alternative medicine as well. Treating the symptom, with the herb or the supplement, and kind of, pushing the actual individual to the side in favor of working on the symptom.
Yeah, and the dad said the name of the game is the name.
Yeah.
If they can get a name for what you have going on, then they can give you the drug of choice, and then they're all good to go.
yeah, you
Right.
say that in the ebook that is free for download. You guys, you can go over to their site and download this book. And one of the paragraphs in this book says, when you're given a diagnosis, That means to modern medicine that there are drugs, treatments, and presumed outcomes that all fit into that particular box. Every diagnosis has a protocol, and every single person assigned to the diagnosis gets the same treatment from beginning to end. And there is zero thought to a person's unique makeup. That's a direct quote out of the book, the free ebook that you guys can get. And I find it fascinating. So I want to talk a little bit about when you say disease is a process and health is a process. Can you kind of walk us through that? Because, Dr. Jasek, you and I hear this all the time, right? My dog just, boom, just became sick. My dog just, boom, has this Cushing's disease or whatever the diagnosis is. Just came out of nowhere. And we're like, well, it didn't come out of nowhere, right? So can you walk us through a little bit about disease as a process and health as a process?
Yeah, we don't get struck by lightning. Well, some people get struck by lightning. And I'd actually assume that there's probably a reason for that as well, if you want to delve deeper into that. But everything happens for a reason. And some people, Dad would say, start off life a little off center, off the tracks, and they keep going off the tracks. A lot of problems come from birth traumas that doctors don't really pay attention to. The normal birth process in the United States is not a healthy way to be born. We're actually last in the world in infant mortality right now. We're the very worst country in the world if you want to be born in a hospital, which is really sobering.
Wow.
So some people start off a little off center. I was a forceps delivery, so they just yanked me out when I wasn't ready. And so Dad always said, you got to get that train back on the tracks and get it going in the right direction. But if you don't, that train keeps going off the tracks and off the tracks. And over time, other things will happen and compound it. And then you're struck by lightning and you have cancer, right? No, everything has a starting point. And the goal for us is to bring it back to that starting point. We're always looking for one reason the person went off center. There's an emotion behind it, but then there's a physical event, and that's what we're looking for. Some people start off life on the straight and narrow and then have a big left turn in life, some sort of heavy trauma. But you have to track it back to where that train went off the tracks. So it's very, very simplistic. Even when we do our consults, our reports are very short. There's several paragraphs. 2/3 of every report I do is the same because it's education. But if my report was 4 sentences, saying, head injury at the age of 8, parents divorced at the age of 7, then people aren't going to really take it seriously. So we have to add a lot of education into the actual reports. But the answer generally is pretty simple. Sometimes there's a case you can't figure out, and that's what Dad always said. Those are the cases you actually think about. You go home when you try to figure it out. But you always track it back to one event in life, and that's what you have to bring a person back to release the emotion.
So when you look at the blood, does it typically tell you that starting point, or is it more of a process? Like you'll see some things and then you start addressing those, and it's like peeling the layers of the onion to get down to the original starting point of what started it all.
That's what's nice about the blood is more often than not, you're going right to the core, and sometimes you do have to peel the onion layers back to get, to the core. But in general, if you treat the core, then the onion blooms, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise you're chasing symptoms around the whole time.
Right.
So no, generally the blood will show the answers. There's the client interaction that's part of it too. We include a history form that I can tell whether people want to get better or not just by the way they fill out the history form.
I like that.
Some people don't take it very seriously. Some people give you their whole life story. So there might be a bit of a victim complex in there, so you can tell a lot just by the way the person fills out the actual history form. 9 times out of 10, the answer is on the history form, and it's funny because doing the blood, I can't let the history form influence me. Because although I look at the history form and it's very obvious what the problem is, I still have to see what's actually going on with the person. And 9 times out of 10, it's still going to be accurate. But every once in a while, you get a zebra in there, and it's like, oh, well, I would have sworn it would have been the appendix being removed, but it was the broken leg at the age of 4. So what's nice about the blood is it kind of takes my brain out of the equation. As long as I understand basic anatomy, and Dad always said you got to be honest about what you know and honest about what you don't know. So if I look at it from an objective point of view, the answers are always there. Answers are always there.
What do you think about the effects of vaccines on the train? Because I feel like I see a big correlation between pets that just get tons of vaccines year after year after year. They struggle more with health. But does that type of thing show up in the blood, or how do you feel like that affects the train?
That's not a loaded question.
It's a good
You're
question.
amongst friends here.
It's a good
Yeah.
question, and it's all about patterns, definitely. And real quick, as far as the idea that there's a process, one thing Dad would say is, mother yells at two children. One child cries in his room for a week. The other child says, Mom's on her period, right? Who's going to get sick? Now, the child that cries in his room, though, goes and grinds his teeth. Okay, he's clenching his jaw, which can affect the structure, which can tilt the head, depending on what's going on, which is going to affect the spine, which is going to affect your hips. So later on, this child has hip problems. It comes back to the anger issue from way back. So this is the process experience. And we look at the blood, we'll see hips, we'll see emotions, and we'll track things back, most definitely, all the way to birth sometimes. So what's interesting before this conversation, I'm thinking about animals in particular. And it is funny because, the human vaccination experience right now is something. The pet vaccination experience is a different thing. It's like, well, we vaccinate our pets all the time. This is something we're just supposed to do. We don't even question that, right? So the reality is, what's going on? You're introducing chemical substance into a terrain that is not used to that. So that's a toxin, all right? Very simple. Toxin enters the body wants to get it out. Well, the body's going to try to excrete things. This is homotoxicology. This is normal excretion, pee and poop and diarrhea and sweating. If that doesn't work, then inflammation. Inflammation is how we heal, and this is bacterial. The bacteria comes in to help assist things in the process. However, if the inflammation cannot get things out of the system, then we become inflamed. Then now we have a problem. Things back up, and now things deposit. This is deposition. So when substances are introduced, we don't know how they're going to affect the body. People are healthy, animals are healthy, depending on, and they just get that crap out. And then other ones don't. Okay, then what happens for us is we can look at the blood and definitely see if you've been poisoned. That's an easy one, all right? Toxin enters the body, there's a specific coloring, it makes perfect sense to us. Now, what does the body do about it? If it can't get rid of it, then it deposits and then things impregnate. When things impregnate into the tissue, that's when we have problems. With what's going on with the humans recently, people are asking us what's the deal, and our response is, we don't know. If things get impregnated, the first thing is the human has a choice, whether they believe it or not. All right, we can say no, and I don't care. All right, maybe you have to move to Mexico like I did, or things like that. What's it worth? I had someone say, my job. I said, is your job worth dying for? You're going to poison yourself, So that's the basics of it. With animals, they do it. They don't complain about it because, well, they're not speaking our language. They do whine, I'm sure. But we can definitely see that easily. And depending on the individual, we can deal with it or not.
We have an epidemic of itchy dogs. An epidemic of itchy dogs. Dr. Jasek and I have done the itchy dog webinar, right? And it's constantly, well, what do I need to change from beef to turkey to pork? We're like, stop putting the toxins in your dogs, right?
Yeah.
And this is exactly what you said. Well, I have to go to the boarding facility. I want to travel. I want to get their nails done. And we're like, do you
Wants
really?
and needs. Wants and needs. You want to get your nails done? You don't need to. You
Right.
want to travel? You don't need to.
Convenience kills. It just does.
And that's my thing. It's like, well, good for you. If that's what you're going to do, you're going to put play Russian roulette to travel. I think you're dumb.
He is one of us. He is one of us. I like it.
Well, the itching is just the body trying to eliminate.
It's excretion.
Rashes are always a good sign because you want it coming out of the body as opposed to going internal.
Right.
The people who got, things recently got shingles were the lucky ones because that was the body eliminating the poison.
Yes.
But what's going to eliminate it, it's going to go deeper down in the body and impregnate. So, I think on the whole, animals are a hell of a lot more resilient than humans are, and they're stronger mentally in a lot of ways, if I can say that. But yeah, the body is trying to eliminate the garbage, and it can come in the form of a shot. It can come in the form of an environmental toxin. I'm sure you guys know about the garbage that's in food these days, whether it's dog food or human food.
Oh, yeah.
You kind of are what you eat, and the body's naturally going to eliminate that stuff. And then they'll blame it on intolerances. Oh, you're allergic to this, you're allergic to that. No, you're eating garbage, right? The body doesn't want that. It does not know how to process that. The body was not designed to be bombarded by poisons all day long. If the body's working properly, it's going to eliminate it. And that's what it does. And sometimes that's through the skin.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you then about germs and pathogens. Now, the reason I say that is because the veterinary industry is one of our biggest nemesis, isn't it, Dr. Jasek, as far as
Oh,
raw
yeah.
dog food comes, because, oh my gosh, dun dun dun, as Adam would
Dun,
do,
dun, dun.
dun dun dun, it is it is the salmonella. Oh my, is the E. coli, is the spirochetes, as I've heard you talk about, Josh, Lyme disease. Oh my gosh, we got to do flea and tick. And this doctrine is so prevalent, right? I mean, we don't necessarily eat raw foods, although cervece or some of those things. And I do personally eat raw meat, and I haven't had a worm come crawling out my sphincter yet. I don't know. Maybe it will, but whatever. So here's the question. What do you guys think about germy food or pathogens that are in like a raw diet for dogs, or even putting or even the flea and tick stuff? What
Mhm.
we don't do it.
It's
And
gotten so bad in veterinary medicine that if like one of the clients that DeDe or I work with goes into traditional vet for one reason or another, and they tell them they're feeding raw, that's it. It's the raw food that's making them sick, and they'll name salmonella or listeria or E. coli, whatever bacteria they choose to name, and that's it. And then they stop there. They don't look at another thing. It's always the bacteria in the food. Like, it's just because it's raw, it's just automatically laden with these horrible pathogens.
And
Yeah.
there's a hypocrisy that goes on. One of the healthiest foods, and everybody agrees on this, is sauerkraut. And what do you think you're eating when you're eating sauerkraut?
Tons of bacteria, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're eating tons and tons and tons of germs, right? So first of all, the word pathogens is one of Dad's Orwellian words, right? So I don't believe in pathogens. You're either in balance or you're out of balance, right? We don't want too much of something. They cut up body open. There's all these bacteria, so many different types of bacteria, but they isolate one and say that's the actual problem. So first we have to look at what is the role of bacteria. And this is when I defer to the farmers. I've been working with some regenerative farming, farmers, and that's more of what I'm aligned with these days because a lot of them get it. They've traveled the world and they've never seen any soil that's deficient in nutrients. Not once, right? The nutrients are always in the soil. What's missing is the microbiology, right? So what happens is the nutrients in the soil are bound there. It needs the microbiology to come along and process the nutrients. Same thing goes on in our body, right? We start to stagnate, the garbage accumulates, the body creates a very specific bacteria. It goes and cleans and stimulates the tissue, and the waste product of the bacteria is nutrients for your body. How is that going to be bad for you? When there's too many of them, now they call it pathogenic, right? It just means out of balance. Going in and trying to kill the bacteria is just going to create more stagnation, and the body's going to try to create more bacteria to go clean up that stagnation. So I don't believe in good and bad bacteria. It's all there to do a very specific purpose. We just want a healthy balance. But I've always been really surprised at how they can, do a test on somebody and they can say, oh, this one little guy, this little spirochete is right there is the cause of all your problems, without having any idea what that bacteria is designed to do. All right. It's there to do a very specific job. And if we don't fix the problem, now the body's going to start to bring the parasites, which are very good for you also. You ever met a farmer who doesn't want worms in the soil? Ever?
Right. It's supposed to be, that's what I've always heard, because I've learned a lot about permaculture as well. And like, one of the best tests of soil health is if you're planting, and out there planting my tomatoes and I see all the earthworms. Like, if you see lots of earthworms, like that's like the best thing to see in your soil. It's a good sign that you've got healthy soil.
Absolutely. They're doing the same in our body. When the bacteria proliferate or become pathogenic, the parasites come and they process the bacteria for us. So it's like the nutrient processing plant, so they're doing a very specific job. Now, if Adam's healthy and I'm not, and we both eat a tapeworm, it's going to go in one end and out the other on Adam. But with me, there's garbage for it. It's going to say, okay, let me clean up this crap for you, and then I'll do my job, and then I'll leave. Right. So even the invasive parasite is attracted to the garbage of the stagnation. And we asked Dr. Alan Williams, this wonderful regenerative farmer. Adam, was a great question. He said, have you ever seen any unhealthy parasitic relationships in nature? And he said, only where man intervenes, right? Only where we cause a problem and we disrupt the actual pattern. Yeah. And this is a guy who does not vaccinate his animals because they don't get sick.
He has
So I
1,500
think the
head of cattle.
misconception, sorry, it's just that people don't understand what bacteria are designed to do.
Yeah, this guy has 1,500 head of cattle and not a veterinarian on staff because his cows
Fabulous.
don't get sick.
Right, right. So do the parasites, you say the parasites appear when there's like garbage to be cleaned up. Are they coming from the environment because they're there anyway? Or is it through this? I know you talk about the pleomorphism and the changes in the body. Are they like coming from the body itself or coming from the external environment?
There's different types of, there's internal parasites and external parasites. So the internal ones, absolutely, it's part of the pleomorphic process. The body's creating them to do a very specific job. The external ones like the tapeworms or leishmaniasis and things like that are coming from the external environment, but they're still going in there to do a job. But yes, I believe that the body is creating those specific bacteria and those specific parasites to do a very specific job. There's no randomness in nature.
Man, everything I was taught was wrong.
It's all wrong, Dr.
I'm still like
JC.
relearning. I'm like, "Ah."
We can learn from nature. You know, even the guy said, Alan Williams said, there are no mistakes. Nature doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
Everything has a purpose, and we're a part of it. So for people listening, you have a purpose. We all have a purpose. We're a part of what's going on.
So, okay. Let me ask this. Oh, I want you to explain pleomorphism in a second. But Dr. Jasek and I were talking before the podcast. So we said, if there is pleomorphism, which you're going to explain, and we've got these parasites that are part of that pleomorphic, I guess is a word,
Process.
process. And we go in and we say, oh my gosh, I got parasites, got to kill them. Aren't we killing the thing that will eventually help us to heal
Yes.
if we kill them?
Yes.
Absolutely. I did one post that people did not like. I said, if you're busy killing parasites, you're not working with the terrain, you're working against the terrain. You know, so yeah, they're there to do a very specific job. But when you're attempting to kill a bacteria and parasites, then you're leaving a weakened body without its worker bees to clean up the garbage.
So much like antibiotics.
Yeah.
It's a different story. Yeah, everything with traditional medicine seems to be a suppressant. You don't fix things by suppressing symptoms. And when they give you something to suppress the symptom, then it's a success because that symptom goes away. But no, it's pushing the sickness deeper down into your body. So now you have different symptoms.
Right.
And essentially, the more suppressants they give you, the deeper that sickness goes down into the body. And now we start to have chronic issues. But Adam does a great job of explaining it with homotoxicology and then the pleomorphic cycle.
Yeah, because this is fascinating, Adam, because it's also frightening. I'm just gonna say, and the reason I say it's frightening is because we're all so indoctrinated to kill off the parasites, the ivermectin, the forbindas, what's it called?
Fenbendazole.
That's why you're a doctor, because you can say those words.
That's what we learned. So I tell DeDe, that's what I learned in vet schools. We just learn how to say the 4 and 5 syllable words, and then everybody thinks we're smart. And
You're very smart. Yes.
Dad talks about that
Educated.
too. They made all the words longer because it made you seem important.
it's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So it seems like everything that's happening, and maybe this explains why there is so much cancer in pets, is because they are so subjected to, one, the poisons. Let's just call them that, the poisons, the flea and tick, the vaccines, the heartworm, all that jazz. And then we're going to suppress it. We got the itchies. Let's just give Apoquil or Cytopoint, shut down all the jacks, right?
Yeah.
And suppress it. And we can't understand why your dog got cancer. Maybe it was the pathogens and the germs in the raw dog food.
Yeah. It's a perfect system.
Yes.
You know, what they have created is brilliant. Okay. With Rockefeller and Carnegie and the Flexner Report and all that stuff, the reality is, was it Carnegie, Josh, or Rockefeller? One of them died without ever having taken a pharmaceutical in his life and had a live-in homeopath, a homeopath that lived with him. This is business. This is not for your health.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the deal is, and if anyone thinks they're involved in terrain is doing any antiparasitics or any antibacterials, that's not working with the terrain. There's no anti in nature. Okay. So the pleomorphism, let's talk about that real quick. As we look at the body, pleomorphism is a process, is a cycle of things adapting, changing into different shapes, different forms based on the terrain, the environment. So we look at the symbiont, the bion, the microzyma, the little microscopic guy in the blood that's moving around. And as far as we're concerned, there's nothing more important. This is like your chi, your prana, your life force. This is where Dad was with Gaston Naessens in Canada. The man isolated one of these things, injected it into a dead rat muscle, and 30 years later, that rat muscle is alive in a jar. Okay, this is pure life. Now we see these in the blood. Live blood analysis says they're fat particles, by the way. So you see this in the blood, and based on the terrain, pH, things like this, they will morph and adapt into bacteria and into fungus in order to help us. The body is always striving for balance and is always trying to help you survive. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this is the goal of your system, to help you survive. So something happens and the little guy morphs into bacteria. Why? Something enters the system, it doesn't get out normally through excretion, then we have to have inflammation to help assist the process. Inflammation is bacterial, so pleomorphism happens and then the bacteria, we're creating them within us. If the bacteria can't get things out, then things deposit, then things become fungal in nature. Okay, you're starting to mold. And if we think about fungus, candidas, yeast, things like that, oh no, the candida, let's kill it all.
Evil,
right?
Evil candida. That's the name of my new band, Evil Candida.
I like it.
Heavy metal band, I gotta write that one down. So it's there to do its job. And we freak out and we'll look at blood and we'll see a little candida there. We'll never tell anyone, oh, look at your candida, because they'll freak out and that's all they hear. Oh my God, I had a candida. Yeah, you had one. If you have a whole problem, then you got a problem. And I just did a song with a woman, Nina, Parasite Party, right? How do you get rid of the parasites? Take their food away, things like that. So this process is awesome. It goes from the bacteria to the fungus, and eventually, if things don't change, then things start to break down in the body. Your body at a certain point goes, okay, obviously we can't help you survive, so we're going to help you to decompose. And this is what we see as cancer. Cancer is a mold, requires certain oxygen environment, high blood alkalinity, simple for dad, okay? But why is the person getting it? The person is complicated. However, the body is molding, now it's going, we're going to break down. Cancer is a natural process that should happen when you're in the ground, and it's happening while people are alive. What beautiful thing about pleomorphism is, this is what dad did in the clinic. We look at blocks, we remove blocks, and that cycle is reversible. Things go straight back to where they came from. And we've seen videos of royal rife killing cancer cells, right? Josh and I, it didn't make sense for us because you don't create health by killing. It doesn't work that way. So at one point, we're watching videos and the Fiona that works with us, she's our microscope technician, she's observing things in the blood, in urine, other things she's observing. So she sees a little protozoa at one point, and she's taking videos of it over a period of time. And at some point it stops, and it's just kind of doing this weird thing in place. And then there's a little hole, and things start leaking out. It looks like little symbionts to us, little bions. And then she goes back to the scope. This is over a period of a bunch of hours. And she looks in, and as soon as she looked in, it exploded. And we didn't get that one on film, but it exploded, and all that was left were the little symbionts. These little guys that, as far as we're concerned, they help us to create who we are. And they help us to decompose. So when we saw this, it reminded us of the Royal Rife videos. And we thought, and we asked a few people that we know have had a lot of experience. We said, look at these videos. We believe that when Royal Rife is administering a frequency, it's not killing that cell, but it's instantly reverting through the pleomorphic process. It's going from this pathogenic experience, whatever, all of a sudden, poof, it's gone, and it reverted back to where it came from. And things, evolutionary things can happen this way, where all of a sudden it changes. So pleomorphism to us is beautiful. People hear the spirochete, you're going to get the pleomorphism and then you're screwed. That's not true. We work with the body, we remove the blocks, and that process reverses. This is what we did for years in the clinic.
Well, and pleomorphism was invented by Antoine Béchamp, who, funnily enough, was Pasteur's rival.
Discovered,
So,
yes.
Pasteur said that everything, germs cause disease, and Béchamp said it's not the germ, it's the terrain the germ lives in, that's the problem. But obviously, the world has followed a different path than Béchamp these days.
Well, pleomorphism doesn't make as much money, right?
No, it's bad
according to
business.
like the Adam, or what you said, Adam, about the business model. It's not the best business model if we just allow the body to actually heal itself. That
Yeah.
So
can't
Dad
make as
said
much
there's no
to
money
do.
in a cure.
Yeah, right.
It's sad,
too.
really sad.
Well, and
Very
that's, I do think this is part of what's gone on with us over the last 3 years. We just made doctors heroes. They are not heroes, right? Trauma surgeons, great. Trauma surgeons, nurses, ER people, paramedics, awesome. When doctors start thinking, no way. And the reality is they did a study on people that live to be over 100. One thing they had in common was they don't go for checkups. Weston Price, way back in the 1800s, traveled around during the Civil War, and he realized in towns and villages where there were no doctors, people lived That's a big deal. So yeah, we've been totally lied to for a long period of time. It's a business. Dad would say we've been snookered. It's an old word that he loves, right? And we can do so much for ourselves. No one cures you and no one gets you sick. All right. We create our disease. We can get through it on our own with a little bit of support, but doctors are not taught that and they don't want you to know that. So the reality is, what Josh and I teach, we educate and empower people so they can learn to take charge of their health care. They don't go to the doctors. So there was just a virus created to scare the crap out of everybody to go to your doctor who's a hero. Firemen are heroes.
Right.
Doctors, yeah. So
How do you go about helping people make that transition? I know this is kind of a big question, but what I run into a lot with my clients is they don't want to be empowered. They don't want to do it themselves. They just want you to just tell me what to give my pet to fix it. Like they don't, there's the people that really want that empowerment and that want to do it on their own and that really want to like embrace this philosophy seem pretty few and far between.
Yes.
It starts with the education, which is our goal now, because we're kind of overholding people's hands. I mean, people do get sick for a reason, so, and most people intuitively know what that reason was. A lot of what we do is just validate what the person already knew. In fact, that's what we always do, is we validate what the person knew, but they've been to so many doctors, whether traditional or alternative, who've just fed them whatever misinformation that it's kind of taken away their power. Yeah. So once people understand how the body works, and how we evolve through symbiosis and non-antagonism, then they can start to take steps to take care of their own, situation. But, I think if they're not going to hold themselves accountable, then there's nothing you can do for them.
Right.
And yeah, we saw it a lot. And generally when people came to see my dad, they'd been to the traditional route, they've been the alternative route, and they were over it. So they were ready to get better. So by the time they got to dad, they wanted to get better.
They've seen how bad the traditional route is. Yeah.
And occasionally, you had somebody who just had no interest in getting better and you couldn't do anything for them.
Right.
So we're hoping by the education, it's funny because we're trying to get the seeds to germinate, and germinate is a great word in farming, but germ is a bad word for the rest of the world. It's like, if you're not germinating, you're not living,
Interesting, huh? Right.
Yeah. So it's like Adam and I will go do these lectures and you'll see, the popcorn kernels going off in the crowd, like, oh, it's like all of a sudden they get it. And then some people, it's not quite getting in there. And some people you can see it's not getting through that veil at all. So you're hoping you're at least planting a seed. And at some point in time, when the person is ready to get better, they'll start to remember some of these things. Right. But if the person has no interest in getting better or taking accountability for their own health, there's absolutely nothing that you can do for them.
Yeah, we're here to teach those that come to us to learn. And the reality is not everyone's interested.
Well, you guys say this all the time. There are no coincidences. Okay. Yeah. And how we found you was no coincidence. And so I am really learning that you will find the teacher when you're ready, right? Somehow, some way. I mean, I found you guys via Amanda Vollmer's interview that she did with you. Now, I'm not a big follower of Amanda Vollmer, right? But I know her because of Tom Cowan and Andy Kaufman and that group, which you guys have done interviews with as well. And it just within the family, we needed some answers about a cancer diagnosis. So I clicked on her video and there you were. I mean, she has like 19 different cancer videos and there's you guys. And I don't know what it was. The frequency, the honesty, the transparency, the lack of ego that you guys have, the lack of a need to be right, and we see that a lot. That's when I text Dr. Jasek and I said, you got to check these guys out, and then I was just fascinated. But the first thing that I was attracted to was just your energy. Right. And because we see it a lot, Dr. Jasek, when people are out there postulating about this and that, and we're over that. Right. So
even people in the, the so-called
truth
holistic world and truth, it's challenging to sort out the information, but I just feel like you know, it like intuitively, like you just know truth when you hear it. And your work just so resonated with me. Like I think it's stuff that I really already believed to be true. But like I was saying at the beginning to Josh, is like, but nobody else is saying it. You just feel like you're a crazy person because everybody else is saying something else, and you're the alien out there. Just so to hear you guys come forward and say you've been studying this for so many years, and your dad had done all this work and repeated this over and over, and I've seen these repeated patterns over and over and over again. Like for me, it was like so validating. Wow, thank God I'm not crazy. You know? Maybe other people are crazy. I'm not the crazy one. Thank God.
Well, if you were normal, we wouldn't hang out with you. You know, normal is crazy.
Okay, good.
Right? There's that. Crazy is
the alien
normal.
club. It's the alien club. Right?
You got it. No, it's really nice to hear these things too. You know, Josh and I, between the two of us, Josh has done this a lot. You know, he's said the talk over and over again. He's worked with the patients. He's a little tired of it because after the pandemic, watching people whose lives we'd really helped and saved and watching them line up to get poisoned is ridiculous.
We see it too.
So, and Mom said, you know, Dad would be really sad because the people he helped didn't all learn from him, right? So at this point though, too, I love what we do. We educate and empower people. We have conversations. The conversations are so valuable. You know, and we plant these little seeds, and it's not that, you know, it resonates, but it's like this reminding. It's like you have a remembering. It's like, yeah, I felt this way. I knew this. Like we know things. We have this cellular memory when we came out, you know, and they've done things to us since the day we were born to try to, you know, get rid of some of these things. What was that movie, Josh? Baby Geniuses or something? Like at the age of 3, then they forget
At the age
everything.
of 2, before the age of 2, they knew everything. By the age of when he turned 3, everything changed, and they couldn't see the world for what it was.
Right. Yeah. So it's a reminding, it's a remembering. And so many times. Josh and Dad used to have this technique where they would pull something up on the screen when we had the clinics, and they wouldn't tell the person what it was right away. They just pull it up and pause. And the person would go, I remember the one guy, that's my large prostate. It's like, he knew it. Wow, there it is, you know. We know these things. And, you know, the reality is you're an expert in yourself. No one knows you better than you. But we also lie to ourselves all the time. I'm fine. Everything is fine, right? What's fine stand for? There's a few words there. I don't want to get into that. But we really appreciate these little things. And when people are ready, it's definitely, I thought this, I had this surgery and then this happened. And I said something to the doctor, and the doctor said, are you a doctor? Like, you don't know what you're talking about. My girlfriend, and she has the children. The one child is breastfeeding. He's throwing up every time he breastfeeds. She goes to the doctor and says, he's allergic to the breast milk or something. He says, are you a doctor? And the doctor says, I want you to go home and breastfeed him for 2 weeks and then come back and we'll talk about it. She said, you're fired. You know, you can fire your doctor, right? He does work for you, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I love what we do. You know, sometimes Josh and I get on interviews where people ask questions, they do the homework, and it's awesome. And sometimes we get on, we just take over the show and we roll. You know, we just go. We have so much information. We have so many stories. Dad did this for decades, you know, and we don't, it's the earlier interviews were just like this diarrhea of the mouth. You know, we can't say it all. We have books, which are great. We have videos, we have our webinars, we do the things where you come and ask us the questions. And the thing is, when you start to become conscious of what's going on with you, it starts to make perfect sense. This is when you realize it is easy. Okay. And pets, I love pets. Pets are awesome. You know, and animals are here for us to support us. They're a part of the terrain. You know, we were definitely omnivores, right? In my mind, the cow, if it wasn't, you know, meant to be eaten, it wouldn't be delicious, and it wouldn't stand there and just go, hey, how you doing? Right? But it's all about a balance. Now, pets in general, you know, before we came on, I'm thinking about pets, and we really have seen some very interesting things with pets. Canine cancer, I think, is only within the last 15 years. All right? A few decades ago, there wasn't much of that. And I'm convinced if the two of you know anyone that has had a pet that has died of cancer, think about that person. If that person did not have that dog, that pet, that person would have gotten the cancer.
Oh, that was what we wanted to ask you about, the energy frequency and what you think is going on there.
Big
We've seen
deal.
that a lot, that I worked with horses for a couple years and back when I had my ex, and extremely empathetic. So I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, what, 20, 30 years ago, yeah, Adam, we never really heard about, your dog getting cancer. It's very much rarer than it is today, So you kind of see these days that they're so empathetic that they're really trying to take on the disease for their owner. So they carry that weight. It's like even when somebody had cancer would come to the clinic, dad would treat the whole family. He would, you just one price, he would just treat the family for free because they knew it was affecting the rest of the family as well. And sometimes in much worse ways, the person going through the sickness and then the person who feels helpless because they can't do anything about it.
Right.
And pets are no different. It's interesting because we teach a lot about Steiner's work. And I think what I loved about Dad is he said, 80 to 90% of what he says will always be true. And some of it might change over time because time is always changing it and adapting. And Steiner talked about what separated us from the animals was, I think, the existence of the spirit. Right. But, I had my bird, which was my best friend, and that bird definitely had a spirit. So I think whereas human beings might be devolving to a certain point, I think animals might be evolving more so than humans are at this point in time. But I think they're so empathetic that in essence, they're really trying to take the disease away from the human.
So do you think they actually take on the blocks, like the actual physical blocks that the
Well,
person
it's
has?
the emotion that creates the block. So there's an emotion behind everything. So when you get an injury, there's an emotion behind what triggered the injury.
Mhm.
Right. So first with the pet, just like the human, there's going to be an emotion that's held in. And then it's going to manifest in some sort of an injury or something that's going to start to affect the flow in the body. And now stagnation occurs and we start to get sick. So it's always going to be that emotional component initially that triggers the actual physical issue. The one thing pets have going for them a little bit more than humans is, they're not removing the dog's appendix because they don't need it all the time. They're not doing hysterectomies all the time, at least as much as they are on humans. There's so many unnecessary surgeries going on with humans that they're creating disturbance fields that makes it a lot more difficult for us to heal. I'm hoping there's less intervention as far as animals go, as far as surgically than they are with human beings, but that's part of the process. But the emotion sets up the actual injury. So it's always going to start with maybe the pet just feeling bad for the human.
Well, and
And
that's,
it's all energy. So they're interacting with the human's energy.
yeah. I was going to say what Dad realized with his cancer patients, which he was very famous for his cancer work because he did really good things with it. Lung cancer patients, grief. Liver cancer patients, anger. Okay, there's an emotion that associated with it that precipitated the experience. Now you have a dog. When you're sad, the dog wants you to be happy. So the dog's going to come up and try to comfort you. And the dog's going to pick up your emotional experience. I mean, you don't just get cancer, like it's not a random thing. You got to work at it. Definitely. All right. So you're working at it. You've got your emotional hell going on. And here's your dog going through the same experience. All right. And the dog doesn't want you to suffer. The dog's got less going on as far as our emotional experience. Dog's not worried about the rent. Dog's not worried about the relationship or the job or the homework and things like that. But the dog is going to take that stuff on easily. And the pets, what we've seen with pets is so amazing. Okay. We did a study, a little, what do we call it? An investigation in Spain. We see scars as a big issue with the body, physical and energetic blocks. So we go to Spain, we get invited there, we do this huge lecture, it's awesome. 500 people show up. People are thrilled. The guy that invites us says, "How can I help you?" We said, "We want to work with scars without invading the body." So he sets up a thing with 3 people that work with scars. One of them works with devices, frequency devices. One of them takes frequencies and encrypts them into crystals that he hand blows these marbles and puts them on acupuncture meridians and shoots them with a laser. His work is being studied at a university in Madrid. The third person uses sounds from nature. Okay, and we looked at 3 people's blood, all had scar issue. When we would inject or treat the scar, we see a scar reaction in the blood. We know we got the right thing going. All 3 of these people worked with their individuals. All 3 got similar reactions, but the one that had the biggest reaction was the one with the animal sounds. This woman took the sound of a cat purring with headphones and put it on this patient's scar for 30 minutes. And in the blood, we saw the scar tissue breaking up.
Wow.
Okay, now as we do this, you think about your cat, all right? And my friend was there, we did a lecture, he was like, "Oh my God." He said, "My cat is always on my stomach, and I have a stomach problem. And that cat is always on my girlfriend's shoulder, and she has a shoulder problem." I get chills. The animals know, they're trying to help. It's a big deal. I even have a guy now, he teaches equine osteopathy. He does osteopathy on horses. All right. And horses are the mirror animals. So if you're scared, they're scared. This guy says he does work on humans. He'll work on their owners sometimes. And the amount that he learns about the owner from the horse, he knows the owner all the way. All right, from working on the horse, right? And the other ridiculousness with animals, Josh, with his girlfriend, he's touching the horse, right? And he's doing a little cranial sacral type work. And whatever goes on, the neighbor's a jerk and calls somebody, and then they get in trouble because in California, you're not allowed to put your hands on a horse in a healing manner.
Unless you're
Seriously? Oh my
unless
gosh.
you're a veterinarian. I got reported for doing cranial
Like
work on a horse.
practicing medicine without a license or something.
Totally.
He's
Oh,
petting the
jeez.
horse, right? In a healing manner. So be careful, people.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Well,
gosh.
isn't that the same thing with your father and the work that he did? I always say, look, if you're going to cure these chronic diseases, they're going to take you out. And that's something that happened with your father, right? The all the work that he did, he was healing people, and he got written up on bad handwriting and a bunch of other bull
illegible
crap.
handwriting.
For curing somebody illegally.
Yeah.
And that was even in the doctor's notes, in the minutes, it said, we don't care that the patient got better. We only care that you didn't do it our way scientifically. So it's documented. They didn't really care about the patient in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So yeah, he was always getting into trouble.
Well,
And I think part of his sadness would be too, is, he created the first homeopathic medical board in the United States. So he was a surgeon initially, but then he created the very first homeopathic medical board. He gave away the very first homeopathic medical license in the United States. And then homeopathy kind of sold out and became supplement pushers. There's still a lot of old good ones, absolutely out there, but a lot of them, they're just kind of sold out and they have this allopathic model. So he created a law that really gave alternative medicine legitimacy, and a lot of them just became green allopaths. They didn't take it and run with it, unfortunately.
yeah, and there was something right before that. Oh, shoot. What did you just say right before that, Josh? Wow, damn it. Chronic. Let's talk about that for a second. What is chronic? You know what chronic is? Chronic is a word that doctors made up when they can't help you. All right. It's like I can see this like Far Side cartoon. It's like, well, what do? I don't know. It's chronic.
Or
You know, just-
idiopathic.
Yeah.
Or autoimmune. You guys say that's
Autoimmune, yeah, we
autoimmune.
don't
is
know what's
another
wrong
one
with you.
when-
It must be your fault because your body is stupid.
There is no such thing. The body will not attack itself. That is a BS diagnosis. All right. So if you're suffering from that, and unfortunately, a lot of people that believe it, they eat it right up. So we cannot help you. If you believe your diagnosis, we cannot help you. Okay. Nothing personal. Go see somebody else. The Lyme clinic, the Lyme disease community was very difficult not to fix, but because they were so involved in their badge. I have Lyme disease. Yay, you're in the club. You have Lyme disease. You're not in the club. You don't get Lyme. I bet you do have Lyme disease. Lyme disease has over 300 different symptoms. So right now, everyone has Lyme disease, right? Get over it. So yes, chronic is what a doctor tells you when he doesn't know how to fix you. All right. I remember when I was younger looking up chronic diseases, and Dad had helped almost every single one of them. So that's their truth. That's not our truth. Lower back pain is a chronic disease. We can tell you all about that. Different people, different things. What else is chronic these days?
long COVID.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, right. Well, that one was never been isolated, so you can't.
Right,
We
right.
just stopped that conversation right there.
The only contagion I believe in is fear
Okay, I wanted to ask you that.
And
I'm glad you
stupidity.
said that.
and stupidity. I guess joy is much better.
Yawning is contagious. Go ahead.
But here's the thing. How do we get your truth? And I mean that in this way. You guys were raised around this, right? So it was like, what would appear to be miracles to most people is just like, this is normal, guys. It just happens all the time.
Totally.
Okay. But you guys were like, right. You came out of the womb like that. You were just like, hello. And, so how do we get your truth? I remember listening to one of your dad's videos that's in the academy. And, he was talking about, he could change your pH, your blood pH, right? Because, which is another fascinating thing, that blood pH in your cancer patients is alkaline, not acidic, because they're testing your urine, which is a byproduct of something. But anyway, he said, I could change that. But if you walk out of here in fear, you're going to reverse basically everything I
Yes.
did. So the interviewer said, well, how do you stay out of fear? And he said, you stay in the moment, right?
Yes.
You don't go tomorrow and you don't look at yesterday, you stay in the moment. And he said, look, it's a practice because if you could do it all the time, you'd be the Messiah.
Right.
Which you guys seem like the Messiah in a lot of ways. So I said the other day to my husband, I said, because you talk about osteopathic work and getting the structure right. And Dr. Steve Davidson, who's out in Phoenix, I said, I wonder if Jesus was an osteopath,
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably put his
Well,
hands on some people in a healing manner without getting arrested for it.
right?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? I think though
Crucified
too,
for it though.
DeDe, there's a lot of these things that we have done. Great grandma knew that chicken soup with love was one of the best remedies there ever was, and she's right. So how do we do this is a good question. I saw Dad when he changed. When he was the eye surgeon, we were rich. Yay, we had the Porsche and the Jaguar, and I was eating Captain Crunch, and Twinkies, and yeah. And then things changed, and carob is a bad lie you tell children that is not chocolate, right? So Josh and our sister Lila, they grew up in this. And Calvin asked him that question once. He said, when did this start for you? And Josh said, I've never known any different. Okay. So for the rest of us that have seen different, I do love Captain Crunch. I haven't eaten it in years, right? So what do we do? First of all, we can talk to grandma. That's one thing. There was a generation ago that people knew things, all right? What is life about? Life is simple, okay? Eat, breathe, sleep. You got to breathe, okay? Breathing exercises are a good thing. Some anxiety, we don't breathe. We sit like this at the computer. We can't breathe. Sleeping should be easy. It's not for most people. Sleeping is the most simple thing about health is parasympathetic and sympathetic. You're either in rest and recuperate or fight or flight. Okay? So you got people who don't breathe well, people who don't sleep well. All right, and the last thing is food. And food is hilarious because, there are breatharians. I mean, if you've heard of that before, the people that don't eat. And I know people that have done that actually. My girlfriend did not eat food for a year. All right.
What?
Yes, her teacher 9 years. Okay. So what have we been told we need to do? Her children can read with blindfolds on, right? You've seen this in some of these things before. So I believe the unbelievable. Now, still the question is, how do we get back to this? Okay. And her kids are funny because they don't think it's a cool thing for them to do this. They just think it's like a normal thing. Right. We think it's like a superpower. Huh? Right. It's just to make them do it. Do your damn homework, right? So meanwhile, how do we do this? If we can be, living in the moment. That was one of the other things for the people who live to be over 100. They live over 100 because they live in the moment. The future is anxiety. The past is depression, things like that. So we need to practice presence. And it's the forward body thing. So we need to align the body first. This is your physical body. It's the supportive framework for your energetic flow. And there used to be a pyramid of health we saw in Seattle. It was like the food pyramid. Remember how wrong that was, right? By the Dairy Council that told us, you need more dairy than anything. Dumb, 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 dumb. There's another one we could say. So you start with the physical body. Align your damn car. Not that I'm just looking at this biomechanically, but if your car is out of alignment a little bit, you drive off center, eventually you end up way off center, way off course. We align our car once a year, twice a year. We don't align our bodies, okay? Align the car. Dad said medical school, he was never taught about the structure of the body. That was 2 more years to be an osteopath. And how many things that Josh has looked at, mysterious diagnosis or conditions, all the heart issues, heart specialists, they're a big deal. Kidney specialists, a big deal. People go around the world to the specialists. No one can figure anything out. We look at their blood. There's the structure out of alignment. It's putting pressure on the heart. We align the body, pressure off the heart. Oh, well, you're fine. You didn't have to go to the heart specialist and waste all your money. Nothing personal against the heart specialists. And Dad did say, he said, the specialists are what's missing the point. You're missing the forest through the trees.
A pulmonologist doesn't even talk to the cardiologist. Do you think the heart and the lungs work together?
Right.
I mean, come on, right. So the first thing is align your car, right? Not a chiropractor, that's too forceful. Although if you got a chiropractor that's very gentle, because we can't generalize with chiropractors these days.
There's definitely chiropractors who are doing things differently these days that can be very profound.
And Dad would say, if you want to work with the body, become a chiropractor. It's the easiest one to do, and you can touch people, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. And they're doing that, okay? You align the body first. It's the supportive framework for the energetic flow. The energy flows, the circulation, the respiration, the digestion. How many digestive issues, Josh? We don't see the intestines, we see the structure, right? Ridiculous. Or the emotions. How many of us get an emotional issue and it goes right to our stomach, right? That's me all day long, my irritable bowel syndrome. Is that a chronic disease, Josh? Probably, right?
You can make it chronic.
We can make it chronic. So you align the car, okay, the physical body, then the energy has to flow. All right. As the energy flows, the next thing is the emotional experience. We are emotional beings. We need our emotional tools. Things are going to happen every day. Dad says, I'll work with you. Your pH is awesome. You go out, someone cuts you off in traffic, you yell at that person, rah, 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 rah. There goes your pH right out the window. Okay. So the emotions, we need to practice joy. You know, Misha Kohayashi is the director of Dr. Emoto's Peace Project, and she says we have 60 to 80,000 emotions a day, which just happens. We're emotional beings. And you know, your doctor and your vet, they don't care about your emotions. They look at your piece of paper and your test results, right? Mm-hmm. So we have all these emotional episodes, 80% of them are negative. These days, even more. Where's the joy in the newspaper, right? Doesn't exist. Everyone loves talking about the misery. I watch these webinars. Oh, we're so screwed. Yeah, we're screwed. I know it. We're screwed. Where's the solutions, right? Where's the solutions? So get the damn joy. If you can align the body, take pressure off things, get the energy to flow, get some joy, and then you got to believe the spiritual experience. If you don't believe you can be better, there's nothing we can do for you.
I wanted to ask you that about the spiritual experience, because what are you saying about the spiritual? I get the emotional, right? The alignment, all that. What is a spiritual experience? Because a lot of people say that's just believing in God.
It's wooey.
But what is it in the way that you're saying it?
We break it down to a few things: mind and consciousness and beliefs.
Okay.
Okay. So the reality is, doctor is going to fix you. Good luck. You know, if you believe you're sick, if you believe you're going to get cancer, here's an experiment. Get worried about an ulcer and see how quickly you can get yourself an ulcer, right? The mind is a big deal. Consciousness. How conscious are we? Most of us are totally unconscious. Here's a new exercise. I've learned this in psychology. When you walk around your house, look at the ground. Look at everything you step over every day. We go on autopilot and we don't even realize what we're stepping over. We don't pay attention. We're totally oblivious.
Every once in a while at the office, I'd wear 2 different colored shoes. And literally nobody would notice. And it'd be like yellow and red. It wouldn't be like, you know, just off-white and tan, you know. And if anybody noticed, I'd give them a discount. And very rarely do people notice.
Totally. It's about being present, being conscious, being aware. If you live in the moment, okay, if you are conscious, you observe, you see, you listen. You know, I asked Berlando once, I said, what is the terrain to you? He said, it's listening. It's being. You know, so if we can do that, and we can't, we got to work. We got too much going on. We got to feed the kids. We got to get in the car. We got to get them to school. We got to get the hell home. We got to do our stuff. We got to feed the kids again, or we got to pick up the kids, you know, and then we're done with the day. And maybe some of us, you know, have a glass of wine or a beer. We pass out. We do it again. Where's the consciousness? The one great movie, Shaun of the Dead, right? Zombie movie, hilarious. In the beginning part of the movie, he gets up and he looks like a zombie. He goes to brush his teeth. He gets his coffee. And he gets on the bus and doesn't even realize there are zombies all around, like actual real zombies. Because most of you, not your listeners, are zombies. No clue as to what's going on. Right? How many people, when they heard this pandemic, they actually freaked out and went and did whatever they were told, versus the other people who went, well, let's think about this for a moment. I don't see what they're saying. That's weird.
And it can be a direct result of the pharmaceutical craze. You know, when I look at somebody's blood, I only ask them 2 questions beforehand when I'm doing it live: are they a vegan? Do they have any meat in their diet? Because a vegan's blood will spread differently. So it tells me something different. Or you want on pharmaceuticals, because with heavy pharmaceuticals, there's a haze that goes on in the blood. And I have to be able to cut through that haze to find out what's really going on. So it's like there's a veil that the blood has, and that's the veil the person has too. So, you know, we see, you know, they said at one point, 70% of the kids in the United States were on Ritalin. right? So you're altering the kid's brain chemistry at a young age during their developmental phases. And we wonder why we've got these weird little zombies walking around. They've never done a study on how one medication interacts with another medication. Yet most people are on 3 to 5 pharmaceuticals at a time. So they're all designed to suppress. And it's like you get these walking zombies walking around, but they're not even in their bodies anymore. They're not even home. You just want to go, are you in there? And you gotta cut through that haze to figure out who's really in there. It's a strange thing.
Well, in spiritually, in combination with pets, pets are awesome. You know how many people, like, what are they doing with the veterans and things these days? I always said when I was single, if she's got a pet, she's got a dog, I have no chance. Unconditional love, you know what I
Right.
mean? And that dog's going to sit
You're
on the
always
couch.
going to be second. Yeah.
Right. Dog's going to sit on the couch right between us, Although if I can win the dog over, that's a different story.
My
Right?
best friend was a bird.
Well, and spiritually, you want to hear that story. This is an awesome, crazy story. All right. Our clinic was shut down. Josh goes into hiding. Dad gets angry. Josh just retreats. And he's in his house for 2 years, right? And he's got his bird, his best friend. And I'm going every weekend to try to bring the joy, and Josh doesn't want anything to do with that. So there's a point in time I'm like, I'm not bringing the joy. Josh is going to wallow in his crap, and then we'll see what happens. We went somewhere, we came back, whatever went on. Josh took his bird to the vet for a routine experience. The bird dies.
Oh no.
Okay. Yes. And this bird's supposed to be with him for 20 years. This was an awesome bird.
Oh,
Okay.
gosh.
This was friendly. This was awesome character, personality. So we have a friend she's very connected spiritually. She would get paid to fly around the States and do clearings of entities and buildings. She's real. And she talks to the bird. And this is awesome because the bird was there for a short time for Josh. And what the bird said, when Josh was going home after the bird was gone, he wasn't comfortable at home. The bird wasn't coming to greet him like usual. So Josh didn't want to be home. And the bird's response was, it's Josh's time to fly.
Oh.
It's like I get tears when I think about
Oh,
this.
no,
Yeah.
Appreciate you bringing this up, Adam.
But spiritually, that bird was there for him when he needed it. And the bird didn't leave him. The bird did what needed to be done so Josh could get out and do what he had to do. I think it's beautiful. I mean, I would love to have the bird here still.
And
The bird
did you, Josh, get out and fly?
Oh, yeah.
It took a little while.
We went
but,
to Seattle. He moved. Yeah.
I moved. I sold my house pretty quick after that, because the house wasn't the same anymore. And yeah, we moved to Seattle, which was a different experience. But it definitely got me out of the pattern of just sitting there in the fetal ball, putting on emotional weight and, hiding
Yeah.
because we were, attacked and crucified. So it got me out of my my mental cage.
And these beautiful souls. I mean, you come home and the dog just greets you. I would love to have a dog. When I was single, I wasn't going to do it because I didn't want to be single. And I knew if I had a dog, I didn't need a girl so much. I had my dog, right? They're awesome. They're great creatures. They want to comfort you. The things that they'll do for us is amazing. We need to appreciate that. Spiritually, there's another life that is there for you to support you. In Judaism, it's interesting. We're Jewish, not extremely religious, but I remember asking the rabbi, and Dad would talk about these things, as far as vegetarians and kosher, and it all came down to common sense. One thing the rabbi told us is he said, in Judaism, the animal soul doesn't go where we go. It goes to a different place. But as we ingest the animal, we're incorporating it into our experience, and we're helping it to elevate. And there's something my girlfriend will say too, that the animals that are with us, they're going through a transition. We're giving them more human qualities and properties, and they're becoming more like us. Their soul is going through a process, which is really interesting spiritually to get into that. At the same time, look at the animals in nature. That's pure. You know what I mean? This is pure terrain. And when Anna said this the other day, she said, animals don't get sick in nature. There's no purpose for them to get sick. When they get sick in nature, they die. They don't get sick and go to the doctor and change. We look at dogs. What do? They eat grass when they're not feeling well, which is brilliant because it cleans out the system. This is one of the things we can do. When I don't feel great, I still love my milkshakes. Yay, and my junk food, but I do the balance. When it's weird and something's off center, I'm going to my salads and things to cleanse things out. We can learn so much from animals. They're
Well,
really here
I
for
think
us.
too, with what you guys are doing, sorry to interrupt there, Adam.
Right.
There's a great book called Nourishment by Fred Provenza, and it's a farming book, but he talks about just observing how nature would interact. What he found out, he says domesticated animals eat for taste, and animals in nature eat for health.
Right.
And it was the same way, like the animal knew, okay, well, this plant didn't do well for me. So the next day, he'd see the cows that, had diarrhea were not eating that plant. They were going over to this plant because they knew that's what was going to help balance the gut out. Whereas as humans, everybody's running to McDonald's, and people aren't really eating food that's got nutrients in it anymore. The farming industry has been totally hijacked, and I'm sure that the dog food industry has to be just as
That's
bad as
awful.
my feeling.
Yeah.
Everything is so much blamed on food these days, and food is medicine, and food can be the opposite too, depending on the source. So it's one of those things he observed in nature. Yeah, animals in nature eat for health, and the domesticated animals eat for taste. And I think part of us domesticating animals is we've imparted our own misguided information on them. So that's why I think probably what you guys are doing with the dog food and understanding what you're feeding the dog is going to make a difference, is being part of the solution as opposed to being involved in more of the problem.
Yeah, I've been feeding raw now for 25 years, and for a long time. Judy, how long you been feeding raw?
Probably about the same, 20, 25 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So like you guys talk about patterns. I mean, people will call us and, my dog's got this going on. They got itchy paws. They smell like a corn chip. They did. We're just like, just get off all the processed food, get on real food that they were meant to eat, and you can get rid of all of the acid blockers and all the crap that they're, on. It's just a tweak of the terrain as we talk about. And one of the things that Dr. Jasek always says is be a champion for your dog. Be that voice. Like you were saying, Adam, you have a choice.
Yeah.
Stop being a wuss. And, there are a lot of people in our movement that are like, we got to meet people where they are. And we're like, we're not meeting you where you are. We're going to kick you out of where you are. Right. We're going to
Awesome.
wake up, stand up and snap out of it. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
Yeah.
Dad would say, don't call him alternative because there's no alternative to what he does. There's no alternative to the way nature works.
Right.
Right.
You don't see a
That's
lion out there bringing down an impala and then lighting a fire and roasting it,
They've been eating raw animal. They've been eating raw forever,
Yeah.
until we got
You
into the
never see a
picture.
deer juicing in the woods.
Right.
Right.
It's just
I-
not the
we-
way it works.
I live up in the mountains, so I will see on next door, people will say, oh my, I need to give the fox ivermectin because they have whatever. And I'm like, leave the fox alone. I don't say it. I just don't even engage. But it's so ridiculous,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I know we're running out of time, but I want to ask you, do you think that the blood work that is done today by the veterinarians, or even by our medical doctors, has any relevance? I mean, what does it really say?
No.
Well, the farmers, it's funny
Right.
because Dad liked lab tests, but he didn't believe their interpretation of that lab test.
Right.
Right. So, and the farmers that we were working with said all lab tests are wrong, but some have a use. Right. So, if you're looking at, like, I can look at the blood and I can see the white count is high. It's nice to have the lab test that shows the white count is high.
Sure.
Platelets, we look at platelets a lot. It means something to us, and they totally discount the importance of platelets. So, there is a use for them. It's never, ever going to show you the cause of your issue. It's only going to show you the result of your issue.
Right.
So if you need a piece of information while you're figuring out the cause, that's great. But doctors were not trained to figure out the cause of anything.
No. I had someone just recently. Guy's
Yep.
got neuropathy, 80-year-old guy, awesome guy, doing his homework. He went to the doctor. Doctor says, it's not my job to figure out why this is happening to you. The doctor told him that. His job is just to stop it. Right? Great. This is the symptoms. It's like the fire alarm. Once again, the symptoms are going, hey, there's a problem. The fire alarm is ringing because there's a fire. You turn off the fire alarm. Great. Then you burn, meatball.
And the lab test, your number, these are normal. Well, normal for who?
Yeah,
Right.
that one. Well,
No.
the cholesterol one, Josh. That was the numbers. The guy had cholesterol that was abnormal, and then later on they said it was normal. His cholesterol was the same. They changed the range.
They
Yeah,
changed the
yeah.
numbers. They said, "Oh, your cholesterol's fine." I was the same exact number,
Well,
but
and the
no, they had
tests-
changed what was healthy for it. Or
The
for that
tests
person.
too. I've got a local person went to have some routine tests. There's hormone levels that are low, so obviously she has a tumor in her pituitary. That's their result, okay? And
Oh,
what they said to her is, we want to operate. And she's like, wait, don't you want to do a scan first to check? They're like, no, we're just going to cut your head open and
oh
see
my
what's going on.
gosh,
It's like, are you kidding me? That is just stupid, okay?
that's
That's not even,
barbaric.
it is barbaric. That's not even, they're going to create so many problems. I got another guy, HIV, and it's like, okay, because of a test in a certain level, and with this one, the diagnosis, I don't know that I believe this diagnosis. He's not really an unhealthy person, but there was one test, they saw some numbers, they gave him a diagnosis. So now as we work with him, well, the reality is his system is changing, he's going through stuff, but he still needs to see the one test to see the number change, because that was the diagnosis.
Well,
It's
we're
not
not
even a
viewed as
valid
individuals
test.
anymore. We're viewed as a number on a lab test, is it? So yeah, so long answer that we just gave, but yes, they do have a use depending on how you're looking at them.
Yeah.
But you have to be aware, just like pH, the pH is just showing you the result. It's not showing you the cause of your issue. If you're treating the pH directly, you're not working on the cause. If you're treating a lab test, you're not working on the cause. You're treating the
Right.
result.
Right.
So for our listeners that might be wondering, like, what, based on this information, what's the best thing they can do for their pet? Should they send in their dog's blood or should they send in their blood to be analyzed?
That's a good question. And you know what? There's probably an interesting product there, because people will spend more on their pets than they will on themselves.
Our
Without a
customers
doubt.
constantly say my dogs eat better than I do. And I said,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I get it.
Oh,
But
definitely. I knew a guy that was developing dog food that was, it was gourmet, and his little commercial was he was eating it because it was better than his food, right?
okay, no.
Well, it was just more or less human
There's
food,
bone in ours, so no.
Yeah,
But
yeah, right.
It's
It's a fine line there.
I think with pets too, it's, we try to have as much of a holistic approach as we can. But 100 years ago, or if you're an indigenous culture, you're living off the land in a different way than modern people are living off the land. The indigenous culture does not get hit by a car while they're going to work. They're not having their appendix removed. They're not having a colonoscopy done, right? So we have so much physical intrusion now in modern medicine, and it's probably true with animals as well, that we're creating these structures that need attention. Like I said, the indigenous person probably doesn't need to go to the osteopath to get aligned. We do. And we've seen it. I only work with one good vet over the years, and they would do acupuncture and they would do some cranial work. Our first answer to everybody always is get the card lined first, see how you do.
Yeah.
See how, if you're still having issues, then let us know. We talk people out of doing consults all the time. It's why our bank accounts aren't great. But same thing with pets. Align the body, see how they do. Pets don't have a whole lot of scars, but if there's a spay or neuter scar, a lot of times they have UTIs later on because that scar is pulling their hips out of alignment.
Yep.
So this one person would treat the scar, and the UTI would magically go away. It's not an infection; it's a stagnation that was created by the hips being displaced because of the actual scar tissue pulling the hips out of alignment.
Right.
So whether you're human or a pet these days, if you're having issues, get the body aligned and see how you do. If you're still having issues after that, then that's where we come in.
Well,
my dog
ahead.
gets, so Dr. Andy is a chiropractor who is also one of our experts. And so I take my German Shepherd every month to be adjusted. And she also uses tuning forks.
Cool.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
Got
cool,
my tuning
right?
forks right here. Yep.
Hey, is it true, Adam, that you can actually bring somebody to their knees if you use the tuning forks right?
Oh yeah, just think about music. Some songs make you cry. They bring you right back to a different spot that you're in. Oh yeah, sound vibration is a big deal. Most definitely.
I think it's probably the wave of the future as far as medicine goes. However, people need to understand the frequencies they're playing with. And I don't see that many people
I
working in
haven't a
sound
clue.
therapy have any clue the frequencies they're playing with. Right? We used to go to these sound baths. We used to lecture at the Seattle Sound Temple, and I kept wondering why. I felt awful after that sound bath. We did blood before and after a sound bath, and 2/3 of the people's blood looked worse because they didn't want those frequencies. Sound is a frequency. So just like anything else, you need to figure out what frequency the animal likes, what frequency that person likes, and that's the frequency for them. And it's different for every. I can cry in a mosh pit, and I can cry at an opera. Right? So other people are horrified by opera and by mosh pits, right? But that frequency resonates with me. So sound therapy, totally profound if the therapist understands the frequencies they're actually playing with. It's not just a pretty sound. It's not just a vibration. It's way more than that.
I think with pets too, just, I think we're in Tennessee now, we're in a rural area and we got 10 acres and it's awesome. But, we were in a Denver suburb when, before, which we were trying to get away from. But, I think now about the pets that we used to see walking back and forth in front of our house all the time. Those dogs they're not even touching the ground that much. People might have a small backyard. Their walks are all on concrete and asphalt. They may never get, there's leash laws and everything. The city's tough on pets because they don't even get to go run naturally.
Right.
It's hard. I mean, there might be some dog parks, but you have to worry about what dogs are there and stuff like that. So I think a lot of the illness, just the frequency, just returning to nature and letting them, roll on their back in the grass that's not sprayed with glyphosate and, get them in a non-toxic environment and allow them to be in nature, I think would do a huge amount for our pets.
Adam's
definitely.
girlfriend is this brilliant. She's brilliant. She talks way above my head. She's got her PhD in biological medicine. She'll go on this hour-and-a-half talk. I'll have no idea what she's saying for 2/3 of it. And at the end, they're like, "What can we do?" And she says, "Take your shoes off and walk in the grass."
Yeah, it's grounding, earthing.
It's very simple. Yeah, the dogs are walking on concrete. They got the leash on. They got to poop in the same corner, the same 2 times a day. My mom's friend, remember Diana? She was on probation for walking her dog without a leash.
I know.
Yeah, right. The lifeguard at the beach tackled her. Yes. Well, and think of this, okay? If we really want to look at the animal experience in general, we want our pets to be healthy. The first thing is, if you live in Arizona, you don't buy a husky.
Right. You're right.
Right.
Okay, we had a Saint Bernard once. Why do you do that? These poor animals. So there's that. Then knowing your animal. Okay, your animal picks up everything that's going on. I remember the show My Cat from Hell was an awesome show, right? And these Buddhists have this cat that just irritates them all the time. So these 2 people, the guy says, "Let me see what happens." So they start, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Nam, and then the cat comes over and hits one of them. And the person goes, "Nam Myoho, stop it!" Had this anti-Buddhist reaction, you know what I mean? And the guy was like, "Oh my God," they're such a mirror and reflection of what we're going through, right? So love your pet, all right? Give your pet the right food is important. Take your pet, kids love pets. That's great. They're people too, we say, right? You need to walk them. You need to give them joy. They experience what you're going through. If you're not having a good time, neither are they. So understand that, appreciate it. It's such a great thing when you come home and the dog comes running up to you. That's a big damn deal. I wish my girlfriend would do that. You know what I mean? Wow, right?
Maybe you don't lick her face enough, Adam.
Throw her a ball
My
sometime.
cat
Right?
from hell was great because his conclusion was it was never ever the cat's fault.
It was not.
It was
ever.
always the owner.
We say that.
Whatever went on with the cat was just a result.
Right. They have to run. There's the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. All right. And it's talking about zebras in captivity get sick because zebras are designed to run away from a lion periodically. That's part of their deal. They run and then they shake it off and they go right back in from sympathetic to parasympathetic. It's very healthy. We just live in this fight or flight. It's intense. We never shake it off. We hold on to things. Someone scratched my CD once and they said something I didn't like and that'll eat away at you. That's your cancer. Okay. And then you're doing that and your dog is doing that, right? Your dog doesn't like the person you don't like. Isn't that kind of funny, right? Bringing that stuff on totally. If health is simple and people are complicated, there's no reason animals should go through what they're going through. It's our fault. All right. They're much more simple than we are. Love them, align them, feed them good food, bring them joy, and watch. And that's really, there's a chart we saw recently. We keep talking about with these brilliant people, which Josh said, it goes over our heads. There's pH and RH and resistivity. There's one chart that shows you conditions historically, cholera and plague and what this terrain was like then and how we're in a much more cancerous environment these days. And my girlfriend did something awesome. She said, I made it more simple than ever. Okay. pH is joy. Get some damn joy every day, at least 10 minutes. We deserve it. We've earned it. It's a big deal. All right. That'll change your pH. Now, RH, if we're looking at resistivity, things like electrical conductivity, grounding, earthing. Yeah, she's a scientist. She's a research scientist. One of the best things you can do is take off your shoes and go outside and ground. It has to do with the electrons and the charge, and that's a big deal with all health issues. The last one has something to do with fat. It came down to me to the fatty ribeye. So if you're getting the joy, if you're earthing and grounding, and you're getting fatty food, Good fat food. That, that cow, that lazy cow that sits around the field and does whatever the hell it wants, you know what I mean? Not the one that's caged up and tortured. Try that for everybody and let us know how things go. Do it
Yeah,
with your
you
animal. It's the
that-
same thing.
we're big on fat, especially with cancer dogs, but there's just so much. You guys, Judy had said, can we have them for like 6 hours? There's just so much that we could cover with you guys, but I know you got to go. Judy, did you have anything else you wanted to ask them really quick before
No,
the
I think
time's up? Is that good?
I really appreciate you guys coming on and having you share with our listeners some of this information, because they might not believe DeDe and I. Maybe if somebody else says it,
Right?
like, well, maybe Dr.
Well, I didn't know half
DeDe
this
knows
stuff.
something after all.
If we put on a white coat, they believe everything we say.
Oh gosh, if you put on a white coat, I'm running. I'm turning you off. If you
My
put on
white
a
coat has a big smiley face on the back, so there's that.
They
Right?
always tried to get Dad to wear a white coat when he was interviewed, and he'd put on his Mickey Mouse vest.
Yep. Well, and we can do, we'd love to be people that you can reach out to as resources. When you have different topics and it's kind of like, I wonder what the Bigelsens think, bring us on, ask us. It's a
Yeah.
great, this is a really different community for us. And it's not, we're not going to get in trouble for cancer with you guys. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you one last thing real quick before we'll let you go too is, yeah, we have a wealth of information that we could share. And this is where we need to meet people where they're at, because we can't dump it all on you, then it's overwhelming, and then you just leave like a deer in the headlights and what the hell just happened, right? So for people listening, check out our website, listen to our stuff, and it's all terrain, all right? When I have a question, I look at nature, and there's a lot of answers there, all right? Now, someone reached out just recently, and there was a situation, the dog and worms, okay? And the dog is bloating, and things are going on. This happens. Dogs get worms, right? And then we do something and they poop out all these worms. It's gross. So what's the deal? The guy goes to the vet. The vet says, yep, worms, we got to do all these things, and your dog's really bad. Your dog's probably going to die. So the guy's like, I'm not giving up on my dog. So he decides he's going to do the natural thing, which is what most people do when they're not happy with the traditional experience, right? They go with it first, traditional, but if they don't like it, they come our way. So he looks up and he finds natural remedies and all these things, and well, his dog poops out all the worms, with the natural remedies, and he's loving his dog. He doesn't want his dog to leave, right? So, well, the dog gets better. The dog's bloating goes away. Why does a dog get worms in the first place? Well, we all have worms, but the dog has the overgrowth, the proliferation. What's going on with the owner at that point? Is he going through difficult times? Is the dog bringing things on? All of a sudden, the owner becomes conscious and present, and nothing else matters except for the dog, because this is his best friend. All right. So what was it that helped the dog? It was natural remedies and the love of the owner. The owner doing what needed to be done for the dog, stopping other things and realizing this is a creature. Antibiotics don't make sense to me. And the doctor says you're going to die. I don't buy that. That's his truth. So the owner did something different. The dog is awesome. The dog is fine. Dog's probably not going to get sick again.
That's really interesting about, you say like he loved his dog, because most people say, ooh, worms, ew, push the dog away. Let's get something to kill those worms, because my dog is now bad and dirty because I saw a worm. But just that energy of bringing the dog in and loving the dog probably had a lot to do with it, changed the frequency. Yeah.
Big deal. And real quick, there's one last story. Josh, you got to tell him the cat story. The woman whose naturopath told her that her problem was her cat.
Oh God, that just makes me angry, Adam.
Changing his pH already.
People should hear this though.
As we're talking about the difference between what we do and what live blood analysis does, and part of it is the inconsistencies and the bad guesses that a lot of the practitioners have. So very clearly, when I look at the blood, you can see platelets. They're very obvious. It's very obvious. You can't mistake what a platelet is, right? They're not taught really much about the platelets. Platelets are fascinating. We monitor your inflammation by looking at your platelets, okay? So they go way beyond blood clotting. Platelets are a huge part of how we heal. And there's no human DNA in a platelet. It's a plant that lives with us and helps us to heal. There's something so beautiful about the platelet. Even the way they grow, they get these tentacles that come out, that's fibrin. So they grow like a mycelium network. It's like they grow like this beautiful mushroom designed to help you heal. So this person, elderly lady, goes to a live cell practitioner who tells her that platelets are toxoplasmosis.
Oh my gosh.
And she's got to and she's got to get rid of her elderly cat.
Yeah.
So she gets rid of the cat, who dies 2 months later because obviously a broken heart.
Oh,
Right?
Jeez.
So this lady's misinformation just affected this lady's life and ended up contributing to the death of that cat. And it's very simple. It's a freaking platelet, toxoplasmosis, because it fit into our narrative of what was wrong.
Yeah. And how did
You
that
know,
help her
because
health? How does that help the woman's health?
it just made me so angry. So yeah, if I don't know what it is, that's my answer. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. I'm not going to make up some stupid answer because it fits into your narrative.
how
Right.
did
Awful.
these live blood people get started? Is this a new thing, or how is this coming about?
It's
There's
new. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Josh, if you want to talk.
I mean, it's been around for a long time, but it's only been hijacked for probably the last 30 years. You know, there's very few practitioners. We haven't met anybody who learned from the same people as my dad.
Yeah.
When it came to the United States, it was basically bastardized, and it was based on a lot of bad guesses. And then the game of telephone came along, right? So people were taking 2-day workshops, Xeroxing the manual, and then teaching the workshop on their own. So the guesses have gotten from bad to worse, right? And their guesses and their conclusions are always something bad. But I look at the blood, there's nothing bad in there. It's just the blood telling you what's going on. It's just a representation of what's going on in your body. It's just a message
Where did your dad learn this?
from 2 different German practitioners who we actually hired private investigators to track down, and they couldn't figure out who they were.
Yeah.
So he had a very different, mode of training.
Yeah.
And
And
the
then
only
he
way
did
he
it
was
for
ever-
years.
Yep. The only way he was ever able to prove what he did is he got results based on what he was seeing in the blood.
Well, and this is the power of the mind. You know, I can show you images. People get microscope images and people are like, oh my God, and they'll believe anything. All right. It's a little
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's ironic, actually. People will believe anything these days, but they won't believe us. Like
Yeah.
there's someone, she's published 50,000 things, she's got followers on Substack. I don't have time to do that. Okay.
Right.
But this is the thing. It's you go to a doctor, you give away your power, okay, and you go, you tell me, you're the expert. And then they say something that doesn't make sense. Western medicine doctors, the allopaths, will just beat you into submission and say, you don't know, you're not a doctor. We got one patient whose real doctor only allows her 3 questions a visit. Because how dare you question him? He's the damn expert. You do what he tells you. But it doesn't make sense to us, so no, don't do that. At this point, as Josh and I, as microscopists, using microscope images, our conclusion right now is for anyone looking at microscope images in relation to anything that's going on recently, stop it. There is
Bob
not...
Newhart.
Yes.
We both had that. Yep.
It's in our school of health, right?
That's right.
Stop it. The thing is, here's an image. I'm going to tell you something. You want to believe that? If you believe anyone based on images, then you deserve what you get. Okay? Isn't that ironic coming from me, who's going to tell you believe me based on my images? I'm not here to convince anybody. Josh and I don't do that. We educate, and if you don't believe it, you don't get it. Well, that's up to you. No pressure. So it's about critical thinking these days, which we've stopped doing. We want everyone else to fix us, and that's not the way it works. Like, from Tom Cowan, there is no contagion. No one makes you sick. And at the same time, no one cures you either. All right?
We said this when we first were introduced to Tom Cowan, blew our mind about the whole, terrain. And Dr. Jasek and I were talking about you guys, and we said, no coincidences that it was like we were introduced there, had our minds blown. So we were ready for you guys.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We were like,
We had the introductory course. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
And
We
then
freak people out sometimes. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's, and you guys that are listening, if you haven't been over to the Bigelsen site, you want to go to bigelsenacademy.com, and there's going to be videos over there that are going to talk about what these images are that they see in the blood. Now, the images that you see aren't really in your blood because, as you guys say, you'd be dead. A picture of a spine or a picture of a hand or a picture of an elbow or whatever it is that comes up. And there are many pictures that come up, as I've seen from someone in our family who has done this, and I've seen the pictures. It's fascinating. But if you are, and maybe these people wouldn't even find you guys. I don't
Right.
know. Do you ever have people that get this information and then they just totally go, "That's BS," and they just blow you off?
I'm gonna knock on wood. We've never been
Yeah, really.
told that directly. I think
No.
sometimes you'll do a report and the person's not ready to hear the truth.
Yeah.
And they'll come back a couple years later and say, that was right on. But I'll knock on wood. Really, the only people who haven't liked us in the past have been doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But when
I'd
you
be
say somebody
surprised.
doesn't want to hear the truth, like what would be something that somebody doesn't want to hear? That
Like
it's
part of their
simple?
issue, part of their issue is their spouse.
Oh, yeah. That's always a little frightening. Has a spouse's face ever turned up in somebody's blood? That would be
Oh
quite
yeah,
frightening. Here's my
Pretty
problem.
much. It's like it was funny because when I looked at a couple's blood, it could tell you so much. Sometimes I look at her blood and I would just feel sorry for him.
Oh gosh.
Oh,
or
jeez.
vice versa,
Yeah.
or vice versa.
Yeah.
You never wanted, so many times the problem was the relationship because too many people compromise these days.
Yes.
And we never wanted their blood to look the same. Because if their
Right.
blood looked the same, then one person's energy was dominating the other person.
Right.
We're there to balance, we're different beings. We're there to balance each other out. That's why Dad never believed in equality. It's all about balance, So yeah, we definitely, yes, the one doctor Dad really got it into it with. The problem, Dad had a way of telling people things that would make me cringe, and they would usually hug him for it.
Yeah.
This guy didn't want to hug him for it when Dad told him the problem was his wife,
Yeah.
his marriage, basically.
Yeah.
And this was a well-known doctor. And as Dad's leaving, the receptionist comes up to him and says, "You're absolutely right. All they do is fight all day long."
Yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah, I was well, Dad was famous for getting people pregnant because he could really get their hips going and make sure their hormones were produced, nicely. I was kind of known for getting people divorced.
Oh gosh.
Oh, geez.
When I knew,
Quite the claim to fame.
yes, when I knew that the relationship was the problem, you really can't go out and tell people that,
Right.
right? It doesn't generally go well. So when we were working with things, I would work on things to strengthen the person's spine so they could stand up for themselves. And if they did that, sometimes it was time to move on. And it was a healthy divorce for one of the people.
Yep.
But yeah, we would just help, because if you go out and tell, well, she's the problem or he's the problem, it's not going to go over very well in most cases. But yeah, the relationship, it's the same thing with pets. The relationship between the pet and the owner is a big deal. It's all quantum entanglement. There's energies that are intertwining, and we have to be kidding ourselves to think we're not affecting each other.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and for I think our listeners too, if this feels like overwhelming, or it's like it's so new, we're always learning. I mean, I've learned
Yeah.
so much in the last 5 years. I mean, COVID really brought a lot of information out that maybe it wouldn't have before.
Right.
But I've learned so much and so many different things, and I've been practicing a long time. I've changed a lot about the way I think in the last few years. So there's always room to learn, and just start with baby steps. Just learn a little,
Yes.
introduce it, let things sink in. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not going to probably be absorbing much. So take a break but it's just like you're saying, we've lost the ability to critically think, or a lot of people have. We've been kind of conditioned not to just believe what you hear on the evening news and the pictures on the CDC website and shut up and don't think about anything.
Yep.
And if we open our minds and are willing to learn, that's when the information comes in.
Oh,
Like
yes.
DeDe says, like, no coincidences. If we're open to learning and open to what else is out there, and ask to get the best information possible, or what's the best thing I can do for my pet, and start there. And maybe it is about you, maybe it is about the human, but you'll get information, I believe, if you honestly ask and are open to receiving it.
That's what
Definitely.
Dad used to say, that miracles only happen when you know what you're doing. And a lot of it, this is just going back. People say you're doing future medicine. No, everything we talk about is stuff that's been done in the past that worked.
Mhm.
Everything that we really talk about goes way back. It's a very, very simplistic approach, and it's all about symbiosis. But you start with the education, and once you understand how nature works and how the body works, then it really simplifies things for you.
Yeah, and settle down, take your time, be patient. If you find something that works, doesn't mean it's going to work for me just because it worked for you. Everyone's different. I think life is awesome. There's so much we can learn every day, and from nature, big time. We're a part of it. We're not separate from it. That's Dad would say, man went wrong when it thought it was separate from nature.
Right.
We're a big part of what's going on. So enjoy your pets, enjoy your days, enjoy your food, enjoy your life. That's a big deal. If you don't, maybe you should change some patterns. This is your life.
Yeah, I think the next podcast that we need to do with you guys is on the knee-jerk reactions, the fear, and the mindset, because they'll be in a great space, right? And then they go into the vet, and these vets absolutely send them into fear. And I've got to do it right now. My pet's going to die if I don't do this right now. And then they do it right now. And I don't know that maybe even us as humans, well, the us humans don't know sometimes when to act versus react.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Animals are much better at it.
yeah. And so we put them in danger. We put ourselves in danger because we do these knee-jerk reactions. We did a podcast not too long ago on trying to cover that. But you guys have such a different and such a so many years of being conscious, right? Again, it's like, help us snap out of it, you know.
Yeah.
And
wake up, just smack them. It's easy. They wake right up.
it's so funny because I was a motivational leadership speaker for years on the speaking tour. And my slogan back then was wake up, stand up, and snap out of it. That's what I always used to say. And now it's so relevant, right?
Yeah.
Wake up, stand up, and snap out of it for what we do. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So what is the link? Where would you like for people to go, Adam and Josh, to look at this new course that you have coming up? What's the date and what's the link where they can find it?
And
We
I'll
got a
just
few
say, too,
things
the
going on.
best,
Go
sorry,
ahead,
the
Josh.
best intro to our work is the holographic blood book.
Yeah.
While some of it gets into the blood at the end, it's those first 6 or 7 chapters that talk about the science behind what we do. It'll talk about Bechamp and Lamarck and even in Modo and emotions, and it puts all the puzzle pieces together, and it's written in a very simplistic way where even I can understand it. So it's not highly technical, but that book there really has all the philosophy behind the work. And I think if people read that, it'll make their life a lot easier. They'll look at things differently.
Yeah, definitely. That is the book. Our first course is based on that one. We've got 2 courses. We're doing 3 actually. We're doing our first blood course, but you have to take the other courses first because you don't take a 4-day course and think you know what you're talking about, right? So that book is awesome, and it's funny, Josh, because I feel like we could write it for pets. We could do a whole new book at the same time.
Please do.
Well, if you
It'd be
do
the
it,
same book.
DeDe, you can help us with some of these things, both of you. If you
Yeah.
read that book,
Yeah.
I really don't think we need to change it at all. We can change a couple words, and say your pet instead of you, and then we got a whole new market, which is cool.
Yes, you do.
But that's a big deal. That book is very simple. It gives you the overview. It gives you the history of what we do, how it works, what's going on there. And like Josh said, even Josh can read it. Everyone can read it. It's designed for anyone. The second one is A Doctor's More Harmful Than Germs book. That one is written more in his voice. It's hilarious, right? It's more talking about chronic disease. It says how surgery can be hazardous to your health and what to do about it.
Yeah.
So that's where we created this next course, which we called The Hidden Side of Healthcare. We didn't want to put out Doctors More Harmful Than Germs because Google will not let us post things, and then we also get interesting people. So if you go to the website, you'll find out more about both. The Doctors More Harmful Than Germs, there's a little more cases that Dad actually talks about. There's the stories, which is really nice. So one is more the foundation, and the other is more what really was going on with Dad. He talks more about the political experience, which is something we don't always enjoy talking about. We're tired of talking about the problem.
Yeah.
And the conspiracy thing, as we've always said, conspiracies are very interesting until they happen to you.
Right.
And we literally wrote the book, Medical Conspiracy in America. Find that one, it's out there, So we're not so interested in that anymore. But the new course it's the same idea. It's all about the terrain. All right. It's showing you patterns. It's showing you real world examples. It's giving you tools and things like that. So either of these books, when you read them, you become empowered. You will never think the same way again. All right. The second course we're supposed to be starting it on Thursday. Both of our courses, what we do is a chapter or 2 each week. I have content from Dad. The first book, I videoed him talking about the whole book. Irritated the hell out of him. It was awesome. So I've got he's teaching the course. Yeah. The second one, we have so much content from our dad. Radio shows that he did and interviews. So reading the book, then asking the questions. With both courses, Josh and I have commentary videos. We comment on almost every other paragraph in a way. The stories as we had him writing the book and chasing us around. Read my chapter. Ah, not again, damn it. So there's really very relevant and applicable things in both of those books. And to read them is one thing, to take the courses where you can get access to us and ask us the questions every week. The discussions are awesome. The discussion we have today, for people listening, you're going to learn from these things, and it's going to cause you to ask more questions. This is where change happens. This is what we need to do, is have these discussions. Josh, even with Alan Williams, why aren't people doing regenerative farming? Why aren't people doing what we're doing? The only reason they're not is because they're not aware of it.
Right.
And this is why you two are awesome. You're generating awareness. Josh and I are hilarious. We have so much awesome stuff. We do not know how to market at all, right? PR, I don't know, so I'm using the wrong words, the wrong colors, we fish in our little pond and stuff like that. So we appreciate you helping us share the word, share the work, and for people listening too, when you come across things that are awesome, like DeDe and Judy, share that stuff. And don't take it personally if someone's not interested. We had a shiatsu master worked with us. He said, as soon as you take something personally, you make it your own problem. So I'm not going to take things personally. And if you take some things I said personally, that's not my problem. That's your problem. So at this point, the courses are awesome. We do a School of Health, which you're seeing. So when anyone does a consultation, we give them access to our tools and our webinars. We do a webinar every other week. One is a guest webinar, and we've had patients on, we've had people that Dad has known, we've had awesome people on. Then we do just a Q&A webinar. Come and ask us whatever you want. We want to be accessible. I can't answer every email. I really suck at emails, so don't email me. Come to a webinar, ask us the questions right to our face. We've really done what we can to be accessible, to put the information out there in a digestible way. And we're here for those that are ready to learn. We'd love to bring us on whenever, we can be your resident, blood guys. This is a weird one. Let's bring the Bigelsens on and ask them.
Oh, we'd love
I
that.
want to know more
Yeah,
about
that's
your,
awesome.
your world also. Honestly, I've been in the health field with people for many years, and I'm just so tired of listening to what anybody has to say about health. Literally over the last 4 years, what it's taught me is that nobody knows what the hell they're talking about when it comes to health, yet they're all authority on what I can do with my own body. Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I can get in with the farmers, if I can work with people who are into pets and things like that, it's a much more enjoyable target area for me than the healthcare field. So
Yeah,
I really want
and
to know what you guys are doing, and if I can be involved and help out and be a part of that.
oh, we'd
I
love
think
it.
the work might bring me some more joy.
Well, and there are a lot of vets that hang out their holistic shingle, and they're still doing. I just had someone contact me today that was telling me about their situation with, they're still pushing the flea and tick and the heartworm, and you're like, what? How and so like Judy is truly holistic, right? And so but like you guys, there's very few like Dr. Jasek, right? And the people, they want a pill, they want a surgery, they want it, and you're just like, if that's what you want, you got to go work with somebody else, because that's just not what we're about, right? And it does get a little frightening, and you guys are better at staying out of fear than I am. But Josh, we so relate when you're saying people, wear me out, right? And that because I look at you guys and I go, oh my gosh, if people wear you out and they're taking your clinics away and you're hiding in your hidey hole, then the rest of us are going to lose out, right? So we can't have that happen to you guys, or to Dr. Jasek.
We appreciate that. And this is why too, as we've learned more about you, when people ask us questions, they do ask about pets. We can start to refer towards some of your resources. You know more specifically about pets. We know in general about health, and terrain is terrain is terrain. So what's the difference with the dog and me? There's some differences, definitely, but you guys are a resource. It's an awesome thing. And I have a saying, I like people. I love people. I mean, sometimes I stop there. The other half of that is most people suck. And my dad would even go further. He'd say, well, there is no gravity. It's just the whole world sucking, right? So this is the thing, is we have things we've known, we love our animals, they love us. And if we keep things simple, life is much easier, much easier.
What is the Bigelsen brothers plan? Where will you be in 5 years?
That's a good
You're such a business person.
and some farm animals. That's where I want to be.
Yeah. Well, Josh and I, it's just the two of us. We have one person who helps us with the microscope work. Josh does the work. I do everything else. Okay, so in between us, we're brothers. You know, I want to help people. He's already helped them. I have questions. His response is, you don't want to deal with that. You know, we're in an interesting spot right now. And yes, we know awesome people, right? I know Andy Kaufman personally. You know, I was with him 6 days in Acapulco, and we know each other. Next time, if I ever visit him, he's going to let me drive his Porsche.
Oh,
Okay?
nice.
That's where I'm at with Kaufman. These people all know us. Okay, they don't always invite us to the party, which is fine. You know, how do you generate the awareness? If you dig deep enough in the terrain, you're going to find us. And I don't think you need to dig any deeper, honestly. Not that that's an ego thing, but the blood, the body knows everything. Terrain knows, the nature knows. Okay, this is the intelligence of that. But the reality is this: yes, Josh and I have a course that we're offering. We did the first terrain course. People were waiting for it, waiting. We did it, and people signed up. This new one, yeah, we got 5 people. You know, so the reality is, well, I don't know how we make a living on that. You know, with the blood work we do, which we do regularly, we don't get as many consultations as you would think. It's amazing how many people interview us that think we're awesome, and they don't even ask us for a consultation.
We don't sell supplements, you know, so there's no money stream there. So the alternative community makes their money that way. So they're not going to have us on their show, you know. So yeah, we're in a very interesting place right now, and there's a fine line. Adam's really, we're different people, and he gets so angry because he wants to save everybody. You know, and you know, when you work with people one-on-one, you realize all you're doing is working with that one person's environment. Whereas if we can educate people, you can get out to more of the masses. So the masses out there who are interested in our work are kind of few and far between.
Right.
We've been on some great platforms, but we want some platforms with people who are into conspiracy shit. And that's just not what we talk about. We don't talk about fear. It's not that I don't believe in some of that, but talking about what the problem is does nothing to solve the issue. So yeah, Adam and I were in a very unique situation right now. Where's it going to go? I think the one thing we agree on is all we know is Dad's information and the work of the people before him needs to be out there.
Right.
And that's all we can do is make sure. And I always say we, and I mean me, Adam, my dad, Béchamp, Lamarck, Einstein, Rudolf Steiner, Edgar Casey, Andrew Taylor, all the great people became before us whose work has been pushed aside. We need to make sure that we're kind of stewards of that work. And if people want to follow that, it's going to change the world for the better. And for people who don't, then they're on their own path in life. But yes, I think we are still navigating this world feeling like aliens, trying to share information that's necessary while making a living doing it. So we're certainly open to suggestions. If you want to introduce us to people, just only people who are positive. I really don't care about people talking about the problem anymore. You know, we just want positive interactions these days. And yeah, we're certainly open to any suggestions that you may have.
Well, I really commend you guys for really sticking to your principles and not going the road of the supplements. I mean, I see that a lot of holistic vets, I call it the retirement plan, because they practice, get out, make a name for themselves, and then start a line of supplements, and
Or a line of dog food, Judy.
or a line of dog food. Yeah, like they
Right.
kind of, and to me that's just so negligent to just have your online store with all these supplements people can go buy just willy-nilly, and they're not even really, like you said, it's just throwing a supplement at a symptom rather than a pharmaceutical. And they'll have a brief description, and then the pets end up on 15 or 20 supplements, and it isn't helping them at all. So
And I'm not against the supplement here and there, as long as you realize you're not fixing the cause. You're providing a band-aid of support while you're fixing the problem.
right.
You know, so a couple here and there, as long as it's coming from a whole food source. If I'm deficient in this vitamin C, why am I going to get that out of a pill bottle? Why would I just go eat the damn orange?
Right. Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
And we've had that conversation before, like with Barolando. He has, he's got a farm and he's got a line of things that you can purchase, but it's not that it's supplements, it's you're getting things from the food.
Right. Right.
So nature
that's
definitely
different.
provides.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a big difference. And nature does provide for us. And I really, it hasn't been the easiest life for us, but this is what we know. This is what we have to do. I'm thrilled right now. Over the last 3 years, okay, for every action, there's equal and opposite reaction. So for all the horrible things the world has seen, I have seen the other side of that. There are bridges being built. We're not popping our head up like a whack-a-mole to get knocked out. Okay. So there are bridges being built, infrastructures being created. The whole world now knows there's nothing more important than your health. It's about time. Okay, our work has been pushed to the forefront. We're trying to do things quietly, but you have mainstream, you have the other stream, and then on the other stream, you have a mainstream also.
Right.
So we're definitely, there's an upstream, ridiculousness that goes on our side. But in the end of this, it's about back to basics. Me, 5 years from now, I'm thrilled. And between both of us, Josh is growing more of his own food. We have no excuses, okay? Anna and I, my girlfriend, moved into a house in Mexico. We have a garden. And one day I'm like, we're eating lettuce and salad. I'm like, oh, this is great. And one day I'm like, it doesn't look good. You're doing it wrong. And she says, I'm not doing anything. I threw seeds out. They grew, okay? Throw some seeds out and grow, all right? 5 years from now, we will be on a piece of land. We'll have the farming. We'll be growing our food. We'll have the animals. There's going to be schooling going on or education for the young kids who are going to be involved in that. They're going to learn, and I've done this with the local Waldorf school. I have kids. I taught a unit for 2 weeks on why we get sick. And at the end of 2 weeks, these 11-year-old kids, not one of them said they get sick because they hang out with other sick people. All right?
Good for them.
That's
Yeah.
our
Good for you.
I'm writing children's songs. That's our future. Okay. So the future is beyond awesome. And right now, there's a lot of, wouldn't you love to live in a world with less stupid people? Me too, right? But look at all these people, stupid people lining up to literally shoot themselves and take themselves out of the picture. Okay. It's unfortunate. I know some of them are my friends or extended family, but I also appreciate the soul that came in to sacrifice itself so that others can elevate. So we're getting a world with less stupidity, okay? People are becoming more conscious. You have the group that doesn't know what to believe. They look for answers, and we have answers, and these answers make sense. There's a lot of
one of
people.
Dad's favorite quotes, which
Yes.
is a good way to tie it into a bow, is he said, "We're victims only until we learn the truth. If we continue with our old patterns, we become volunteers."
Right,
Mhm.
right. And there's something about being adamantly ignorant, which I've seen a lot. People aren't interested in the truth. There's a lot of people that are not interested. They want their pill.
Yeah.
Great, there's someone to give it to them. It's not me, right?
Right. Well,
Yeah.
we will, yeah, we love your work. We think it's probably one of the most important pieces of work that we've seen out there. And so whatever we can do, to send that energy to help you guys, to bring you guys on, to get more people to look at your work. I think I personally think it's just invaluable. Don't you, Dr. Jasek?
Absolutely.
I
100% agree.
I've come to a conclusion that if there's nothing more valuable than your health, nothing, okay? I don't care you got your Ferrari, you're still unhealthy, right?
Right.
So at this point, what we have been able to do is answer questions about your health that no one else has ever been able to answer. So in my mind, there is nothing more valuable than what we do. We can educate you and empower you so you can take charge of your health care. You take your power back. You can be healthy. This is actually true freedom. You can't golf if your legs don't work, right?
Right.
You can't eat that ribeye if your stomach isn't working, right? If your head doesn't think right, you can't even keep your job. There is nothing more important than your health. And if you got it going, support it and keep doing it. If you got questions, the answers are in the blood.
That's right.
Yeah.
So get over to bigelsenacademy.com. Is that the best site?
Yes.
Bigelsen, Bigelsen, bigelsenacademy.com. There's so many things that you can do. You can download the free ebook. You can buy the book. You can get in the courses. You can get a consult. You can get your blood looked at. It is amazing, amazing, amazing. Do your body right. Go over to bigelsenacademy.com. Everybody, thanks so much for listening to the podcast today. Remember, you can get your dog on a species appropriate diet right now. You can get over at rawdogfoodandco.com, where your pet's health is our business. And we're friends. Don't let friends feed kibble. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.